I think one of the things that is so empowering about psychotherapy in general, but particularly evident in psychedelic psychotherapy, is that the impetus for healing is coming from within, from people's own inner wisdom and their inner capacity to work towards well-being. And when they're focused on that, I think the psychedelic experience can help refine it and provide fuel for it and make it easier to make some of the changes so that people can be consistent with that. And so I think that the therapist sort of does the same thing. We start to refine people's values, help them refine their values and their inclinations, and understand themselves and how they maybe acting in ways that are not consistent with their values, or getting stuck in cognitive traps, or all of those things. And then the medicine makes it even sort of really facilitates that. So I think we're both, the therapist and the medicine, during the prep and integration, are working down the same path. And I think, but ultimately it's about uncovering what's inside the client. So it's not impossible that someone would be able to uncover that without the direction. And it's also possible that someone could do all the steps and still not get there. So I think you want to increase the likelihood of a positive outcome. And a positive outcome is one in which, I think, from my theoretical perspective, is one in which people are able to identify and become congruent with their values and live in a way that reflects that. So I think you increase your likelihood of that if you spend time focusing on what those values and desired outcomes are. And then if you review how you can integrate them effectively into life. So, given how I think precious the psychedelic experience is, I think you want to maximize the opportunity that it's going to be impactful. So I think that preparation and integration do that. It's all working towards the same end. Couple goals, one of which is making sure that they will be able to focus on the journey, on the experience, and not be distracted during it. And so they feel, and in order to do that, they have to feel safe and cared for, and to a certain degree understood. And that it varies how quickly people can come to that feeling. But one of the goals of the preparation session is to just, to take away the fancy word, just get someone familiar with who's going to be sitting with them and get to know that and feel safe, so that they are able to go deep. Mm-hmm. So that's one of the goals of the prep session. And we know from psychotherapy research more broadly that therapist relationship and rapport counts for a huge amount of growth in therapy, post-therapeutic growth and treatment, symptom remission and stuff like that. A lot of it's based on the relationship. So I think you have to work to get a relationship. And even 1 or 2 sessions, pretty skinny, and that's mostly what we consider prep. So that's not a lot of time to establish a relationship. It's hopefully it's minimally acceptable. So even if you just focus on that, I think that's a lot. And then on top of that, I like to think that you can sort of help people to plant seeds that then sprout up during a session. So as they start to identify their values and their goals and what might be some obstacles to those, to living in accordance with those, I'd like to think that increases the likelihood that some of the clarification that can take place in the psychedelic moments will be facilitated if some of those touchstones are identified beforehand. So it's sort of like planting seeds or Easter eggs or whatever it is that you want to, whatever analogy you like. But I think putting that in place, I hope so. I mean, we haven't done the research yet. It would be interesting to see is it enough to just establish rapport and then go in with the medicine, or do some of the clarifications, some of the little bits of ACT, or ACT is a type of therapy that it seems to be getting integrated with psychedelic psychotherapy quite a bit. I think it's a promising way to look at it. But does the few hours of ACT-related psychoeducation, if that's what you want to call it, or ACT-focused therapy. Do those help? We're still in the early stages of the research where we're figuring out how does the therapy work? Does it work? And once we get past that, the next stage is to sort of what are sometimes called dismantling studies, where you start to say, okay, what are the necessary ingredients? Does goal setting actually help? Does rapport help? And it's hard to do those studies. So I don't know if we'll know. I think a lot of the time we're going to end up with therapist and client intuition. It's hard to imagine that someone would just come into a psychedelic psychotherapy session with complete strangers and feel comfortable. So clearly there has to be some kind of preparation. It's also hard to imagine somebody wouldn't want to check back and talk about it and try to make sense of it with someone who's dedicated to that. And it's going to vary a lot in different people's lives, how much maybe they have someone that they can integrate with, or even someone they can prepare with. So, I think if people have that in their life, it might be less important, but really there's not much substitute for a trained therapist who is really at your service. The other people that are in your life inevitably fill other roles. And so they have a conflict, whereas a good therapist can really be devoted solely to your preparation and integration. So I'm quite positive it can't hurt. How much of it is necessary? I think we need to do the studies to find out. But my guess is you got to meet with someone a couple times and then probably unpack it a couple times. And that seems to be where things are sifting out, right? Is 2 or 3 prep sessions and two or so integration sessions. That seems to, in most of the manuals and protocols that I'm looking at, that seems to be where we're balancing the substantial time requirements of therapists with the needs of the patient. And when it comes down to the nitty gritty, what are we really talking about? And I've worked on a couple of manuals. We can talk big picture, but ultimately we end up saying, oh, do we need 2 or 3, or 3 or 4? It's not like, do we need 2 or 10, or do you need? So at the end of the day, we can debate it, but I think we're probably going to land on 2 or 3 prep sessions and 2 or 3 integration sessions, and then maybe a repeat. As a patient, how long do you want to wait? So I think there's that too. I don't think it's just about, hopefully it's not just about finances, but it's about someone wanting relief and wanting the psychedelic experience, and tell them, okay, we'll meet and it'll be in 3 weeks. Okay, we'll meet twice and then on the 3rd week do it. But if you say someone, we're going to meet 8 times and in 3 months you can have your psychedelic session, I think that might be somewhat demoralizing.